subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because you are about to witness a man lose absolutely everything in a single sunrise. Like this video, if you've ever wanted to teach someone a lesson they'll never forget. They say the most dangerous person in the world is a woman who has stopped crying and started planning. Roman Vance, an elite architect from New York City, thought he had it all. A high-powered position in a Hudson Yards office, a young mistress in a luxury condo in Tribeca, and a faithful wife, Elena, waiting for him in a mansion with their newborn son. He thought he could live a double life forever, but when he returned home after a night of passion, he didn't find an argument. He didn't find tears. He found a house stripped to its bones, a sold sign in the yard, and a silence so deafening it would shatter his entire existence. This is the story of how a man lost his empire in one dawn, and why you should never underestimate a mother's instinct. The empty mansion, the digital clock on the dashboard of the Mercedes GLS, emitted a soft neon blue glow for 12 a.m. Roman Vance cut the engine, letting the silence of the elite Greenwich, Connecticut suburb envelop him. His shirt still smelled faintly of Vanessa's perfume, a cloying scent of vanilla and expensive jasmine that clung to his skin like a second layer of guilt. He rubbed his face, trying to hide the exhaustion. He had told his wife, Elena, that the merger with a construction firm from Chicago was delayed, requiring an all-nighter at the office. It was the oldest lie in the world, but Roman was arrogant enough to believe he had invented it. He grabbed his briefcase, rehearsing the tired smile he would use if Elena was awake feeding the baby. Tough night, honey. The partners were relentless. How is little Leo? He walked up the stone path to his classic colonial-style mansion, the pride of his life. He had bought this house 3 years ago when his architectural firm finally hit the 7-figure profit mark. It was his castle. He inserted the key into the lock. It didn't turn. Roman frowned, jiggling it. What the hell? He pulled the key out, checked it, and tried again. It wouldn't budge. A sudden flash of irritation pricked his chest. Had Elena changed the locks? Was this a petty reaction to him missing dinner last week? He headed toward the side of the house, intending to go through the garage, but stopped abruptly. Moonlight illuminated the front yard, highlighting a wooden post that hadn't been there when he left yesterday morning. It was a real estate agency sign. A red ribbon was plastered diagonally across it with large, aggressive letters. Sold. Roman blinked. Sure, he was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. He stepped off the path and walked onto the lawn, his Italian leather shoes sinking into the damp earth. He touched the sign. It was real. Cold wood. Vinyl sold sticker. A cold, sharp panic pierced his confusion. He ran to the large living room window and pressed his hands against the glass to peer inside. The room was empty. Not just tidy. Empty. The custom-made velvet sectional sofa was gone. The antique oak coffee table. The grand piano he played at Christmas. Gone. The walls were bare, stripped of the art collection he had spent 5 years curating. Even the curtains were taken down, leaving the windows like empty, skeletal eyes staring back at him. "Elena," he whispered, his voice cracking. He ran to the back door. Locked. He grabbed a garden stone and, without thinking of the consequences, smashed the glass panel of the French doors. The sound of shattering glass tore through the neighborhood's tranquility, but he didn't care. He reached in, unlocked the latch, and stumbled into the kitchen. The echo of his own footsteps was haunting. The kitchen island, usually cluttered with bottles, mail, and Elena's herbal tea, was spotless. The refrigerator door was slightly ajar. The light was off. The shelves empty. He ran up the stairs, heart beating against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Elena, Leo!" he shouted, bursting into the master bedroom. The king-size bed was gone. The walk-in closet door was open, revealing empty shelves. His suits, his watches, his shoes. Everything vanished, as if he had never lived there. But the true horror awaited him in the nursery. He ran down the hall to the room painted a soft sage green. He opened the door, bracing himself to hear the soft cooing of his 3-month-old son. "Leo?" The room was a void. The crib was gone. The rocking chair where Elena spent hours breastfeeding. Gone. The changing table, the diaper pail, the mobile with spinning stars. Everything had evaporated. In the center of the room, on the plush carpet that was the only thing left, lay a small, lonely object. It was his cell phone bill. Roman walked toward it on trembling legs. He picked it up. It wasn't the bill itself. It was a printout of his call log for the last 6 months, highlighted in neon yellow marker. Hundreds of calls and texts to one number, Vanessa, and attached to the paper was a handwritten note. The handwriting was elegant, sharp, and unmistakably Elena's. "The merger wasn't delayed, Roman. But your time is up. The house is sold, assets liquidated, locks changed. Don't look for us. You were too busy looking at her to notice I was packing." Roman dropped the paper. The silence in the house was no longer peaceful. It was a grave. He pulled out his phone and dialed Elena. "The number you have dialed is not in service." He dialed the landline, realizing in the process that the phone jacks had likely been ripped from the wall. He dialed his lawyer, Arthur Peterson. It rang 4 times before a sleepy voice answered. "Roman, it's 4 a.m. "Arthur, where is my wife?" Roman screamed, pacing the empty nursery. "Where is my son? The house is empty. There's a sold sign in the yard. What the hell is going on?" A long pause hung on the other end of the line. When Arthur spoke again, his voice lacked its usual friendly warmth. It was cold, professional, and unsympathetic. "She activated the clause, Roman. You signed the prenup 2 years ago when you started the firm. Remember the infidelity clause?" That was just legal jargon. It was a binding contract," Arthur said. "Proof of infidelity triggers an immediate transfer of marital assets to the injured party to ensure the child's welfare. She sent me the evidence yesterday morning. Photos, texts, hotel receipts. It's irrefutable." "You let her sell my house?" Roman roared, veins bulging in his neck. "It wasn't your house, Roman," Arthur said quietly. "Technically, the title was in her name due to your business liability. She sold it to a cash buyer yesterday afternoon. The funds are already offshore. Arthur, you have to stop this. I'm coming to your office." "Don't," Arthur said. "I no longer represent you. I represent Elena. And Roman. If you try to approach her or Leo without a court order, she has a restraining order ready to be filed. Goodbye." The line went dead. Roman sank to his knees in the center of the dark, empty nursery. The smell of fresh paint and baby powder was gone, replaced by the musty, dusty air of abandonment. He collapsed. The highlighter on the phone bill glowed in the moonlight. He was homeless. He was alone. And the sun was starting to rise. Key question for you. Do you think Roman deserved to lose his house and money? Or was Elena's punishment too harsh? Leave your opinion in the comments. The Gray Rock Method. Understand how a woman empties a 5,000 square foot mansion in 12 hours. You have to understand Elena Vance. Elena wasn't just a housewife, though Roman often treated her like one. Before Leo was born, she was a logistics manager for a global shipping conglomerate. She knew how to move things. She knew how to organize chaos. And most importantly, she knew how to spot a discrepancy in a manifest. 6 months ago, Elena was doing laundry. Roman left his jacket on a chair. Careless. He was getting arrogant. She found a receipt in the pocket. It wasn't for a hotel or dinner. It was a receipt for a diamond tennis bracelet. Elena didn't have a tennis bracelet. She didn't scream. She didn't throw a vase across the room. She tasted a cold, metallic flavor in her mouth, like sucking on a penny. She put the receipt back, exactly where she found it. That evening, she cooked his favorite risotto, listened to him complain about the firm partners. She smiled. She kissed him goodnight. And then, while he slept, she unlocked his phone. He had changed the password, but Roman was a creature of habit. She used his birth year, 1984. She found the texts. Vanessa. Photos. Promises he was making to this 24-year-old intern about leaving his boring life behind. Elena downloaded everything, emailed the files to a secure, encrypted account, then put the phone back. The next morning, she didn't confront him. She started what psychologists call the gray rock method, but with a twist. She became the perfect understanding wife, while simultaneously severing every string that bound them. She visited Arthur Peterson, the family lawyer. Arthur was Roman's father's friend, but he had a soft spot for Elena. More than that, Arthur was a man of the law, and the prenup Roman had signed, laughing and saying she'd never have to worry about it, was brutal. "If I trigger this?" Elena asked. Arthur warned her, looking over his glasses in his mahogany-paneled office. "It has to be a nuclear strike, Elena. If you leave a crack in the door, he'll wiggle through. He's a narcissist. He will try to destroy you." "I don't want to destroy him, Arthur," Elena said, hand resting on her stomach. "I just want to make sure he doesn't destroy us." The plan took months. Gradually, she moved her personal valuables into storage, claiming she was decluttering for the baby. She transferred her inheritance into a trust for Leo that Roman couldn't touch. She monitored his schedule, waiting for the perfect window. That window opened when Roman announced the merger trip to Chicago. The moment his Mercedes pulled out of the driveway that Tuesday morning, a fleet of 3 moving trucks pulled in from the opposite direction. Elena was a general on a battlefield. Living room to truck A, nursery to truck B. Everything in the study marked Roman to the dump, she commanded. She hired a liquidation firm to buy the furniture she didn't want. The sale of the house was a masterpiece of timing. She had listed it as a private, off-market sale months prior. A wealthy tech CEO from Silicon Valley had been eyeing the property. She closed the deal via digital signature at 12 p.m. At 6 p.m., the house was a hollow shell. At 8 p.m., she was at a private airfield in Teterboro. She looked at Leo, fast asleep in his carrier. He had his father's nose, but he would have her strength. Her phone buzzed. It was Roman. A text. "Landing in Chicago. Miss you both. Kiss Leo for me." She didn't reply. She pulled the SIM card out of her phone and dropped it into a trash can in the terminal. Boarding the plane, she felt a phantom pain in her chest, a mourning for the life she thought she would have. But as the engines roared, masking the sound of her own shaky exhale, she knew one thing for certain. Roman wasn't returning to a tragedy. He was returning to consequences. Make sure to leave us a comment with your reaction. Did you expect Elena to be this methodical and organized? The architect's ruin. Roman sat in his car until the sun fully rose. The sold sign mocked him in daylight. Neighbors were starting to come out. People he had barbecued with. People he had impressed with his stories. He saw Mrs. Smith, the gossip from across the street, peeking through her blinds. He couldn't face them. He reversed out of the driveway and drove straight to the bank. He needed cash. He needed a hotel. He needed to hire a private investigator. He walked into the Chase Bank branch with the confidence of a man who still believed this was a solvable error. He approached the teller, a young woman named Sarah, whom he had flirted with harmlessly in the past. "Roman, good morning," she smiled, though she looked confused by his disheveled clothes. "Rough night?" "You could say that, Sarah. I need to withdraw from the joint savings account." "Of course." She typed on her keyboard. Her smile faltered. She typed again, harder this time, then frowned. "Mr. Vance, I see a hold on this account." "A hold? That's ridiculous. It's a joint account?" "Yes, but the primary account holder initiated a freeze pending family court review, and," she hesitated, "the balance is 0. "Zero!" Roman shouted. The security guard by the door took a step forward. We deposited a bonus check for $50,000 last week. It was transferred yesterday, sir, to a trust account. Since it is a joint account, either party can move funds. Roman felt the blood drain from his face. Check the company account. Vance Architects. Sarah looked uncomfortable. I can't access it, sir. You are listed as an authorized signer, not the owner. The company is registered to the Vance Family Trust. The trust. The trust Elena's father had set up for them when they married to protect family assets. Roman had always assumed he controlled it. He had signed the papers without reading them closely, too busy drinking scotch with his father-in-law. He was a guest in his own life. I have no money, Roman whispered. You have your personal checking account, Sarah offered kindly. Balance? $400. $400. He couldn't even pay for a week in a decent hotel with that. He stormed out of this bank, hands shaking. He got into his car and slammed the steering wheel. He needed an ally. He needed someone on his side. He dialed Vanessa. Hey, baby, she purred. Back from Chicago already? I thought you were stuck in meetings. I never went to Chicago, Roman snapped. I was at your place, remember? Wow, genius, what happened? Elena knows. She knows everything. She emptied the house, took the kid, froze the accounts. Silence hung on the line. A long, calculating silence. She froze the accounts? Vanessa asked, her voice losing its seductive lilt. Like, all of them? Yes. I'm locked out of everything. I need to come over. I need somewhere to stay until I sort this out with the lawyers. Roman, Vanessa said, the sound of a lighter clicking in the background. That is super stressful. But the thing is, my landlord is coming for an inspection today, and my sister is staying on the couch. Vanessa, I have nowhere to go. I bought you that Cartier necklace last week, and I said thank you, she replied sharply. Look, Roman, I don't do drama. Wives, lawyers, frozen assets? That sounds like a you problem. Call me when you get your black card back. Vanessa. Click. She hung up. Roman stared at the phone. The betrayal stung, but it was nothing compared to the dawning horror of his reality. He was no longer the powerful architect Roman Vance. He was a man with a tank of gas, $400, and a suit he had been wearing for 24 hours. He looked in the rear-view mirror, eyes bloodshot. His 3-day stubble was already showing gray. Fine, Elena, he growled at his reflection. You want a war? You got one. But he didn't know where the battlefield was. The glass wall. The drive to the office was a blur of adrenaline and denial. Vance and Partners was located in a sleek, glass-fronted building in Hudson Yards, a building Roman had designed himself. It was the physical manifestation of his ego, sharp angles, imposing height, and intimidatingly modern. He parked the Mercedes in his reserved spot. CEO and founder read the plaque. He touched it for reassurance. Elena could take the house. She could take the kid. But she couldn't take this. This was his genius, his sweat equity. He smoothed his wrinkled shirt, ran a hand through his hair, and walked into the lobby. He needed to project power. He needed to look like a man handling a minor domestic setback, not a man whose life had just been firebombed. The receptionist, a young girl named Chloe, who usually greeted him with a bright, "Good morning, Mr. Vance," didn't look up. She was typing furiously, shoulders hunched. "Chloe," Roman barked, walking past the desk. "Get Julian on the line and bring me a black coffee. I'll be in my office." "Mr. Vance," Chloe said, voice trembling. She finally looked up. Her eyes were red. "Your keycard won't work for the executive suite." Roman stopped. "Excuse me, Mr. Trofimov, Julian ordered security to change the access codes an hour ago. He said you have to wait in the conference room, the glass one by the entrance, the fishbowl. That's what they called it. It was where they put junior partners when they were being reprimanded. Get Julian down here, now." Roman didn't wait. He walked to the glass doors of the executive wing and tapped his card against the reader. A harsh red light blinked. Access denied. He kicked the door. "Julian, open this damn door!" The heavy oak door at the end of the hall opened. Julian Trofimov, his business partner of 10 years, walked out. Julian was a man of few words, a structural engineer who made Roman's artistic visions stand against gravity. Usually, he was disheveled, covered in chalk dust or blueprints. Today, he was in a suit. He walked to the glass door, but didn't open it. He stayed on the other side, looking at Roman the way one looks at a rabid animal in a cage. "Open it, Julian," Roman warned, voice low. "I can't do that, Roman," Julian said, his voice muffled by the soundproof glass. He pressed a button on the intercom so they could speak. "The board called an emergency meeting at 6 a.m. We voted." "The board? I am the board. I own 51% of this firm." "You owned 51%, Julian corrected. "But you leveraged 20% of your shares last year to cure those gambling debts in Monaco, remember? You thought no one knew." Roman froze. He hadn't told anyone about that. "The remaining 31% is held by the Vance Family Trust," Julian continued, pulling a file from under his arm, "which, as of this morning, is frozen due to pending litigation involving gross moral turpitude." "Moral turpitude?" Roman laughed, a hysterical barking sound. "I had an affair, Julian. Half the clients we work with have mistresses. Since when is this a church?" "It became a problem," Julian said, eyes hard, "when you expensed your mistress's lifestyle to the Miller Group account. The hotel in Barcelona? The jewelry? You logged it as client relations. That's embezzlement, Roman. It's fraud." Roman felt the floor drop out from under him. He had done that. He had been careless. He thought he was untouchable. "Elena," Roman whispered. "She sent you the books?" "She sent us everything," Julian confirmed. "And she sent it to the Miller Group. They pulled their contract an hour ago. That was a $40 million project, Roman. Gone. We are doing damage control. Security is coming to escort you out." "You can't do this to me! I built this!" Roman screamed, slamming his fist against the glass. "You designed the facade, Roman," Julian said, turning his back. "But the foundation was rotten." Two burly security guards appeared behind Roman. One held a cardboard box. "Mr. Vance," the guard said, offering the box. "Your personal effects from your desk. Please come with us." Roman looked into the box. A framed photo of him and Elena from their wedding lay face down on top of a stapler and a stress ball. He was walked out of his own building, through the lobby where interns stared and whispered, and onto the sidewalk. It had started to rain again. He walked to his car, threw the box in the passenger seat, tried to start the engine. It sputtered and died. He looked at the dashboard. "Remote immobilization active. Contact leasing agency." "No," Roman moaned, hitting the steering wheel. "No, no, no!" The lease was in the company name. Julian had killed the car. Roman Vance, architect of the city skyline, sat in a bricked luxury SUV in the pouring rain, clutching a box of office supplies, homeless, jobless, penniless, and immobile. He let out a primal scream that was swallowed by the indifferent noise of the city. Then he grabbed the wedding photo, smashed the glass against the dashboard, and wept. The Hunter, the Sunnyside hostel was a misnomer. There was no sun, only the neon flickering of a pawn shop sign across the street. And it definitely wasn't a hostel in the picturesque sense. It was a flophouse on the outskirts of the New Jersey Turnpike, a place where people went to hide. Room 114 smelled of stale cigarette smoke and industrial cleaner. Roman sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at the yellow wallpaper that was peeling off. It had been 2 weeks. He had sold his Patek Philippe watch for $4,500, a fraction of its value, to a shady jeweler who knew Roman was desperate. That money was his lifeline. He spent the first 3 days drinking cheap whiskey, wallowing in a toxic mix of self-pity and rage. He drafted hundreds of texts to Elena, from begging forgiveness to violent threats. He sent none, because her number was still dead. He tried going to the police to report a kidnapping. "It's her mother, sir," the desk sergeant said, looking at Roman's unshaven face and wrinkled suit with disdain. "And you have no active custody agreement. She has every right to travel with the child, unless you have proof she is endangering him." Roman had nothing. By day 4, the booze wore off. The rage crystallized into a cold, hard purpose. He didn't want forgiveness anymore. He wanted to win. He wanted his son. He went to a public library. He no longer had a data plan on his smartphone, and found a listing for a private investigator. Victor Morris, finding the unfound. Victor met him in a dive bar. Victor was a small, nervous man with grease stains on his tie and eyes that darted around the room like a frightened sparrow. But he was cheap and willing to work for cash. "So, wife took off, huh?" Victor asked, chewing on a toothpick. "She abducted my son," Roman corrected, sliding an envelope with $1,500 across the sticky table. "I need you to find where she went. She used a private airfield, Teterboro. Flight records are sealed." "Nothing is sealed if you know who to bribe." Victor grinned, pocketing the cash. "Give me 3 days." Those 3 days were an eternity. Roman paced the motel room, eating instant noodles made with tap water, watching local news on the grainy TV, half expecting to see a report about a missing socialite. But there was nothing. Elena had vanished without a ripple. When Victor finally called, Roman ran back to the bar. Victor looked less cocky this time. He looked annoyed. "Your wife is good," Victor grunted, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "She is really good. Did you find her?" "I found the plane. She filed a flight plan to Zurich, Switzerland." "Zurich?" Roman's heart sank. Switzerland. No extradition for certain civil disputes. Banking secrecy. "Yeah, but here's the thing," Victor continued. "The plane landed in Zurich, all right. But she didn't get off." "What?" "Manifest shows the plane landed empty. It was a decoy, Roman. She filed a false flight plan. The plane made an unscheduled stop in Bordeaux, France for refueling before crossing the Atlantic." "No. Wait. Before that, it stopped in Bangor, Maine. Correction for Western setting. Let's say she flew north." "Bangor, Maine?" Roman frowned. "Why Maine?" "Maybe that's the point," Victor said. "We tracked a rental car picked up under her maiden name, Elena Fisher. No, wait, she used a different name. Elena Vance is dead. She used a passport you probably didn't know about. Portuguese passport. Her grandmother was from Porto, right?" Roman dug through his memory. Elena had mentioned Portuguese roots, but he never paid attention to her family history. It bored him. "Name on the rental was Elena Ferreira," Victor said. "She drove north, then the trail goes cold. She dumped the rental in a long-term lot at a bus station. From there, she could be anywhere." "She's in the north," Roman whispered. Understanding hit him. "She loves the cold." "No. She loves the sun. She always wanted to move to Florida." "She went where you wouldn't look," Victor said. "Smart lady." "Find her," Roman ordered. "It's gonna cost more," Victor said, tapping the table. "I need travel expenses. I need to bribe bus ticket agents. I need another $2,000. Roman checked his wallet. He had $400 left from the watch money. "I don't have it right now." Victor stood up, buttoning his cheap coat. "Then I don't have a location. Call me when you have cash, Mr. Vance. But a word of advice? If a woman tries that hard to hide, maybe let her stay hidden." Victor left. Roman sat alone in the booth. She was close. He knew the area. The North. New England? Canada? He went back to the motel, looked at his possessions. He had nothing left to sell except one thing. He dug into the lining of his suit jacket, pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was the diamond engagement ring he had bought for Vanessa. He planned to give it to her the night he returned from Chicago, to convince her to be patient while he figured out how to leave Elena. Vanessa had never seen it. It cost $10,000. He stared at the diamond. It represented everything he had done wrong. Greed, lust, stupidity. He walked to the pawn shop across the street. "How much?" Roman asked the broker, a man behind bulletproof glass. The man squinted. "No papers, no receipt. You'll lose. It's an heirloom. Give you $2,000 cash. It's worth 10. Take it or leave it, pal. You look like you need a hot meal." Roman took the money. He didn't call Victor. He didn't trust Victor. He packed his single duffel bag, walked to the bus station, bought a one-way ticket north to Vermont. The ghost in the snow, 3 months passed. Winter in Vermont was a physical assault. The wind from the north felt like razor blades. Roman had never known cold like this. In his past life, cold was something he watched from behind triple-paned glass while sipping brandy by a fire. Now, it was a constant companion. He lived in a boarding house in a small logging town called Starkfield, sharing a bathroom with a fisherman and a retired cook. He grew a beard, not stylish designer stubble, but a thick, unkempt mask that hid his face. He lost weight. The tailored suits were gone, replaced by flannel shirts and heavy boots bought at a thrift store. He called himself Mark. Worked odd jobs, handyman, unloading trucks. It was brutal, back-breaking labor. His architect hands, used to holding fine drafting pencils, were now blistered and calloused, but the physical pain distracted from the mental agony. Every evening, he sat in the local library, using the free public computer. He became a digital ghost hunter, scouring real estate listings in every small town in the north, looking for property sales that matched Elena's pattern. Cash buys, quick closes, isolated locations. Searched for Elena Ferreira. Nothing. Searched for birth announcements? Nothing. He was losing hope. Maybe Victor was wrong. Maybe she really was in Zurich. Maybe she was in Florida. Then, on a Tuesday in November, he made a mistake that became a miracle. He was looking at a local community blog for a town called Willow Creek. It was a tourist trap in the summer, desolate in winter. The blog was highlighting a local winter solstice craft fair. He scrolled through images of homemade jam and knitted scarves, eyes glazed. Then he stopped. Photo number 42. In the background of a photo focused on a woman selling beeswax candles, there was a figure walking away from the camera, a woman in a thick gray wool coat. She was pushing a stroller. It wasn't her face. He couldn't see her face. It was the scarf. It was a distinctive scarf. Cashmere with a specific tartan pattern. The Vance family tartan. Roman's mother had knitted it for Elena for Christmas before she died. Elena had always said it was too scratchy, that she'd never wear it. But here she was wearing it. Perhaps for warmth, perhaps for comfort, or perhaps because she thought no one in this frozen, forgotten corner of the earth would know what the Vance tartan looked like. Roman zoomed in until the pixels blurred. The stroller was high-end. Bugaboo, and the way she walked. Head high, shoulders back, a determined stride. It was her. He felt a jolt of electricity that almost knocked him off his chair. "Gotcha," he whispered. He spent his last paycheck on a bus ticket to Willow Creek, arrived just before a blizzard hit. The town was shuttered. Big summer homes boarded up for winter. He found a cheap room above a tavern by the water. He spent a week watching. He didn't know where she lived, so he staked out key points. Grocery store, pharmacy, post office. On the 5th day, he saw her. She was coming out of the general store. She looked different. Her hair, usually highlighted and perfectly blown out, was darker, pulled into a practical, messy bun. She wore no makeup. She looked tired, but peaceful. She carried a grocery bag in one arm and held Leo against her chest with the other. Leo was big. He was sitting up now, looking around with bright eyes. He wore a blue beanie with floppy ears. Roman was across the street, hidden in the doorway of a closed souvenir shop. His heart hammered so hard he thought he'd have a cardiac event. He wanted to run, wanted to grab her, wanted to scream, "That is my son!" But he froze. A man walked up to her. He was tall, wearing a rugged parka and carrying an armful of firewood. Not a rich suit. Looked like a local. A carpenter, maybe, or a logger. He smiled at Elena, a warm, familiar smile. Elena smiled back. It was a genuine smile, one Roman hadn't seen in years. The man reached out and tickled Leo under the chin. Leo laughed. The sound carried across the snowy street, piercing Roman's soul. The man took the grocery bag from Elena, put a hand on her lower back. They walked together to a beat-up Subaru Forester parked at the curb. Roman felt a nausea so strong he had to lean against the brick wall. Who is he? It had only been 4 months. She had already replaced him. A darker thought crept in. She planned this part too. Was this man part of the escape plan? Roman watched them drive away, memorized the license plate. He wasn't just fighting for his son anymore. He was fighting a ghost of a life he didn't even know she had. He pulled his collar up against the snow. He wouldn't confront her on the street. That was careless. That was old Roman. New Roman, forged in the icy docks of Maine, would wait. He would find where they lived, and he would take back what was his. The cabin in the woods, he followed the tire tracks in the fresh snow. The tracks led 5 miles out of town, winding up a narrow forest road flanked by dense pines heavy with snow. The Subaru Forester had struggled up the incline. The treads left deep, churned scars in the white powder. Roman walked them. His boots slipped on the ice hidden beneath. The cold was a physical weight now, pressing on his chest, making every breath an effort. But the fire in his gut, a toxic mix of rage, entitlement, and a twisted sense of fatherhood, kept him moving. He smelled wood smoke before he saw the house. It wasn't a mansion. It was a cabin. A sturdy log structure with a wraparound porch and a stone chimney puffing gray smoke into the twilight sky. It looked warm. It looked like a home. Roman crouched behind a woodpile covered in a tarp. His breath steamed in the air. He watched. Through the large front window, he could see the golden glow inside. Saw Elena walking back and forth, rocking Leo. She looked content. She looked safe. Then the back door opened. The man, the one from the grocery store, stepped onto the porch. He wore a flannel shirt with sleeves rolled up, despite the freezing temperature. He grabbed an axe leaning against the railing and walked down the steps toward the woodpile where Roman was hiding. Roman held his breath, pressing himself against the dark side of the logs. The man stopped 10 feet away, set a log on a stump. Thwack! The sound of the axe splitting wood was like a gunshot in the quiet forest. Thwack! Thwack! Roman studied him. He was younger than Roman, maybe late 20s. Muscular, but functionally so. Not gym sculpted. He looked capable. Dangerous. "Caleb, dinner's almost ready." Elena's voice drifted from the open door. The man paused, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Coming, El. Just chopping enough for the night." El. A nickname. A familiarity that made Roman grind his teeth. The man, Caleb, gathered the wood and went back inside, stomping snow off his boots. The door closed. The latch clicked. Roman waited. He needed to know the layout. He circled the cabin like a predator, found the fuse box on the side of the house. A cruel smile touched his chapped lips. He didn't want to just knock. He wanted to terrify. He wanted them to feel a fraction of the helplessness he felt standing in his empty nursery. He waited until the kitchen light went out, and the glow moved to the living room. They were settling in. Roman reached into the fuse box and yanked the main breaker. The cabin plunged into darkness. Inside, he heard a gasp. Then the man's voice. "Power's out. Probably the wind. I'll go check the generator." "Be careful," Elena said. The back door opened again. A flashlight beam cut through the snow. Caleb walked out, heading toward a shed in the backyard where the generator likely was. Now, with Caleb distracted in the backyard, Roman moved to the front entrance, tried the door, locked, looked at the window, didn't want to break it, and let the cold in on Leo. Some twisted paternal instinct still remained. So he used a credit card, expired, the only plastic he had left, to shimmy the lock of the old wooden frame. It was a trick he learned from a contractor years ago when they got locked out of a site. The lock gave. The window creaked open. Roman climbed in. Heat hit him first. Smelled of pine, cinnamon, and roast chicken. Smelled of the life he threw away for a cheap thrill in a hotel room. "Caleb?" Elena's voice came from the darkness of the living room. "Did you fix it already?" Roman didn't answer. He closed the window behind him and latched it. He stood in the entryway. The fire in the hearth cast long, dancing shadows across his face. Elena was sitting on the rug in front of the fire. Leo was playing with wooden blocks at her feet. She turned her head, squinting into the gloom. "Caleb?" Roman took a step forward. The firelight finally caught his face. His beard was wild, his eyes sunken and manic, his clothes stained with salt and mud. He looked like a revenant rising from a grave. "Hello, Elena." Elena didn't scream. She didn't faint. She went rigid. Her hand instantly shot out to Leo, pulling the baby against her chest. She stood up slowly, backing away toward the kitchen counter. "Roman," she whispered. Her voice wasn't scared. It was full of a deep, weary sadness. "Did you think you could hide my son from me?" Roman rasped, voice rough from disuse. "You steal my house, my money, my life, and you think I won't come for him?" "I stole nothing," Elena said, voice trembling slightly but gaining strength. "I took what was legally mine. You signed the papers, Roman. You broke the contract." "Screw the contract!" Roman roared, stepping closer. "I am his father." "You are a stranger," Elena spat. "You haven't held him since he was 2 weeks old. You missed his first smile because you were working late with Vanessa. You missed his first fever because you were at the casino. You aren't a father, Roman. You're a donor." "Shut up!" Roman lunged forward, grabbing a heavy iron poker from the fireplace tool set. He didn't want to use it, but he needed to feel powerful. "Give him to me. We're leaving." "Leaving?" Elena let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "Look at you, Roman. You're homeless. You're unhinged. Where are you going to take him? Under a bridge?" I have plans," Roman stammered. "I'll rebuild, but I need my son." "You don't need a son," Elena said quietly. "You need a possession. You need a win. That's all this is to you. A game you lost." "Give him to me!" Roman swung the poker, smashing a lamp on the side table. Glass shattered. Leo started to wail. Elena clutched the baby tighter, turning her body to shield him. "No!" Roman reached out. His dirty hand grabbed Elena's shoulder. "I said give me." Suddenly the front door exploded inward. It wasn't opened. It was kicked in. The wood splintered, sending shards flying across the room. Roman spun around, raising the poker. Caleb stood in the doorway. He wasn't holding firewood anymore. He was holding a pump-action shotgun. The beam of a flashlight attached to the barrel blinded Roman. "Drop it," Caleb commanded. His voice was calm, terrifyingly steady. Roman hesitated. "This is my wife. This is my son." I said drop it. Caleb racked the slide. Ch-ch-ch. The sound was universal. It cut through Roman's rage and went straight to his survival instinct. The poker clattered to the floor. "Hands on your head, on your knees." Roman slowly sank to his knees. The adrenaline was draining away, replaced by the crushing exhaustion of the last 3 months. Elena exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. "It's okay, Leo, it's okay." Roman looked at the man holding the gun. "Who are you?" he snarled. "Her boyfriend? Think you can take my place?" Caleb kept the gun trained on Roman's chest, but looked at Elena. "Boyfriend? That's rich." Elena walked over to Caleb, placing a hand on his arm. He doesn't know, Cal. Never asked. Roman looked between them. The eyes. They had the same eyes. The same nose shape. He's not my boyfriend, Roman, Elena said, looking at her ex-husband with pity. He's my brother. Roman blinked. You don't have a brother. You said you were an only child. I said I was estranged from my family, Elena corrected. Because my father was an alcoholic and my mother was sick. Caleb was in the Marines. He was deployed for the first 3 years of our marriage. When he came back, you were too busy building your empire to bother meeting my hillbilly family. Remember? You told me not to invite them to the Christmas party because they wouldn't fit in. Roman felt the memory hit him. He had said that. He had dismissed her entire history because it didn't fit his aesthetic. Caleb has been living in the guest house for 2 months, Elena said, helping me fix this place up, protecting us. From you. Roman slumped. The humiliation was total. He wasn't replaced by a lover. He was defeated by a family he was too arrogant to acknowledge. Police are on their way, Caleb said. Silent alarm. I triggered it from the shed when the lights went out. No, Roman whispered. No, please. Police? Elena, don't do this. Elena looked down at him. For a second, he saw the woman who had loved him. The woman who fixed his tie before his first big pitch. I'm not doing this, Roman, she said softly. You did this. You came here. You broke in. You threatened us. You wrote this ending yourself. The final secret. The ride in the back of the squad car was a blur of red and blue flashing lights reflecting on the snow. Roman watched the cabin disappear into the distance, a warm, glowing dot in a vast, cold darkness. He was charged with breaking and entering, stalking, and assault with a deadly weapon. Because he had crossed state lines to commit the crimes, federal authorities got involved. The legal hammer Arthur Peterson had warned him about didn't just fall. It flattened him. But the real twist, the final dagger in Roman Vance's heart, didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened 3 weeks later, in the visitation room of the county jail. Roman sat behind the glass, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on his emaciated frame. He waited, thinking maybe Elena would come. Maybe offer a plea deal. Maybe let him see a photo of Leo. The door opened. It wasn't Elena. It was Arthur Peterson, his former lawyer. The man who had facilitated the destruction of his life. Arthur sat down, placing a sleek leather briefcase on the metal table. He looked older. Tired. Hello, Roman, Arthur said. You have the nerve to come here. Roman spat. Come to gloat? I'm here to close the file, Arthur said, opening the briefcase. And to deliver a message. Elena didn't want to come. Thought it would be too cruel. Cruel. She destroyed me. Arthur sighed, took off his glasses and wiped them. Roman, there is something you need to know. Something that didn't matter until you tried to claim custody. Arthur slid a document against the glass. It was a medical report. What is this? 2 years ago, Arthur began. When you and Elena were trying to conceive, you went to a fertility clinic. Remember? Yeah, we got tested. Doctor said we were fine. Doctor told Elena she was fine, Arthur corrected. Told you that you had low motility, but it was possible. But that wasn't the whole truth. Roman stared at the document. The medical jargon was dense, but the summary was clear. Diagnosis, azoospermia, sterile. The world stopped spinning. The buzz of the fluorescent lights vibrated in his ears like a swarm of hornets. Sterile, Roman whispered. No, that's impossible. Leo is my son. Arthur looked at him with a gaze that wasn't malicious, but deeply sad. Elena wanted a baby more than anything. You were indifferent. You were busy. You were cheating. She knew the marriage was dying even then, but she wanted to save it. Thought a child would bring you back. Whose is he? Roman's voice broke. Who is the father? Anonymous donor, Arthur said. From the clinic. She did it to save your ego, Roman. She knew if she told you that you couldn't give her a child, you would fall apart. Your narcissism couldn't handle it. So she underwent the procedure, got pregnant, and let you believe it was your miracle. Roman froze. Memories of the pregnancy flooded back. Elena's secret doctor visits, her evasive answers. And when Leo was born, Roman bragging to everyone about the Vance genes. "Look at that chin," he'd say. "A true Vance." It was all a lie. A lie built to protect his fragile masculinity. "She loved you enough to lie for you," Arthur said, putting the paper away. "She wanted a family with you, even if the biology wasn't yours. But then you found Vanessa. You started siphoning money. You stopped coming home." Arthur stood up. "Leo isn't your son, Roman. Not biologically. And after what you did in the cabin, never legally. The judge granted a permanent restraining order this morning. And since you have no biological claim, your parental rights have been terminated. 100%. Roman couldn't breathe. It felt like his lungs had turned to glass and shattered. "Why?" Roman asked, tears streaming down his face. "Why tell me now? Why not let me rot thinking he was mine?" "Because," Arthur said, pausing at the door, "Elena wanted you to know that you didn't lose a son because of a divorce. You never had one. You lost the privilege of being his father. And that was a choice you made every single day you put yourself above them." Arthur knocked on the door for the guard. "Goodbye, Roman." The door closed. Roman Vance sat alone in the gray room. He looked at his hands. Hands that had built skyscrapers. Hands that had signed checks for a mistress. Hands that had held a poker to his wife's face. He had chased a ghost across the country. He had waged a war for a legacy that didn't exist. He closed his eyes. In the darkness of his mind, he saw the sold sign in the yard one last time. He realized now that the house wasn't the only thing that had been sold. He had sold his soul, piece by piece, over years. And now, the bill had finally come due. He put his head in his hands, and for the first time in his life, he didn't scream. He didn't rage. He just sat in the silence he had built, brick by brick.